Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for taking the time to come today. Really excited to get this conversation going. We have 4 amazing panelists here with us today, and I'll just briefly introduce each of them. So we have Mark Hardy. Hello, Mark, who is the Director and Entrepreneur of the Innovation Center at Framingham State University. We have Stephanie Kaplan-Lewis, who is the co-founder and CEO of Her Campus Media. We have Himanshu Agarwal, who is the Global EIR Venture Development Center at UMass Boston. And last but certainly not least, we have Adam Lewiski, who is the founder and CEO of Stokes All Natural Fire Starters. So first we're going to start off with a couple of polls just to see who is here. So if we wanted to get those going. So first of all, at what stage in your career are you all at for those? You can close the poll now. So it looks like we have a good mix of people. We have one from grade school, about 50% undergraduates, another good amount of grad students, and then some professionals as well. So it's nice that we have a good panel out here. And to follow up on that, what stage in your career, just 1 second, I'm so sorry. Would you be able to launch the next poll, please? What are you here to get out of this poll, being at that stage in your life? All right, so we can go on and close that poll now. Awesome. Again, we have a nice combination of what people are looking for, and the questions that we'll be talking about we'll definitely be able to go over. All right. So first, to start off, we're just gonna, every startup and venture starts with a dream. So we're just gonna see how our panelists got their start. So whoever wants to start, feel free, and we can just go from there.
Alrighty, yes. So when starting a business, my real dream was that I didn't want to have a boss and I didn't want to be under anyone. And I want to continue doing that for as long as I can. And so that was really my initial thinking, is when I was launching into it, is that I just want to be doing my own thing, having my own schedule, and not being under the thumb of anyone else.
I'll go. I joined a startup when I was at business school, my very second week there. Had a tremendous experience. Liked it so much that I looked at startups as part of my graduation plan and joined a startup upon graduation. I was actually the number 2 hire. For me, startups really became part of my career after business school, even though I went into business school thinking that I would get a management degree and then go back to the corporate world. So it's been a long, eventful, fun journey, but certainly something that was exciting and was a change for me at that point in time in my career.
Thank you. Stephanie, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So my co-founders and I started Her Campus Media 11 years ago now, when we were undergrads at Harvard. And for us, we really started a company not because we set out to be entrepreneurs or because we were looking for an idea that we wanted to jump on, but really because we happened upon a pain point. And for us, that was because we were running Harvard's lifestyle and fashion magazine on campus at the time. It was an annual print publication. We'd all gotten involved with it as an extracurricular. we decided we wanted to transition it online to be able to cut down on printing costs, publish content more frequently. And once it was online, we started getting a ton of interest, not just from women at Harvard, but from women at colleges all over the country. And we started hearing from a lot of women all over, many of whom were saying they wished that their school had something like this that they could read. They liked reading the Harvard one, but it wasn't really speaking to them. And a lot of women also said they wished their school had a publication like this that they could write for. They wanted to go work for Glamour or Cosmo or Vogue when they grew up, but the only outlet they had on campus was a school newspaper. So we really felt two pain points really acutely as college women and aspiring journalists ourselves, one of which was that lack of content for this audience. We really didn't feel like there was any great content out there digitally or in print speaking to college women, not teen girls or young women. And we really didn't think there was a proper platform and way for college women to get the clips and experience that they were looking for to land the types of jobs and internships that they wanted. So we kind of happened upon a pain point through following our own passions, getting involved in an extracurricular that we were passionate about, and ended up deciding to turn it into a company.
All right, amazing, thank you. Himanshu, would you like to share your story?
Yeah, so I kind of found my way into it via academic research. I was kind of lucky to get a couple of publications during my undergrad. And that kind of started rolling the ball in terms of looking for opportunities to kind of, do something with it. I kind of continued with academia and sort of went to work for a number of startups, spent about 15 years in the industry. And then I really kind of started at UMass trying to help commercialize academic research, help students find their way into startups and kind of mentoring and helping everyone out. And with my own startup, it was, my own startup really was a result of being in the industry for, 12, 15 years and finding out an area that needed further development. My employer didn't want to do it, so I got out and did it myself. That's really all of it.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's amazing that we all come from such different backgrounds, because I really think that's going to be very beneficial. So as a student myself, and what really the focus of the core of this panel is, one of the hardest parts in starting a venture was, where do I go and who do I talk to actually make this a reality? So where did you personally get your start, or where do you suggest that an undergraduate or a graduate start to get their start?
So I'll tackle that real quick because I can tell you where to go. At Framingham State, we have an innovation center. That's exactly where I encourage students to come down to. We launched an incubator, not because we got millions of dollars behind it in funding, but you do need a place to go where you can focus on your startup, get some guidance, be around other entrepreneurs. We've got another panelist who's from VDC, Venture Development, out at UMass Boston. Look at your university. You should have something in the form of an innovation center, a lab. If you don't have something on your campus, look close by, look nearby. Is there any incubators, or for that matter, is there even just a co-working space nearby? A lot of co-working spaces are populated by remote workers, but also a lot of entrepreneurs just looking for a place to kind of get started, inexpensive, get your work done, and be around other like-minded individuals.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So for us, I kind of told you the beginning of my story a minute ago. And basically what happened next was that we really felt like we had happened upon a pain point and an idea, and we needed to figure out how to go from an idea swirling around in our head to actually making it a reality. And so what we did is we entered Harvard's business plan competition. And of course, we hoped that we would win it. We did end up winning it. But really, it was just so helpful as an exercise to really kind of walk us through all of those building blocks and steps and questions to think about, especially as liberal arts majors ourselves. And so we always tell people, enter a business plan competition. If you win, that's the icing on the cake, but just the exercise of doing it will teach you so much. Mass Challenge is another amazing business plan competition in this area. We were in Mass Challenge the year after we launched, and we're lucky to be a winner in that as well. And we were also able to get incubator co-working office space out of that. So I think definitely look into business plan competitions at your school in the area like Mass Challenge. If you win, amazing. But really, it's the act of going through it that teaches you the most.
I think perhaps I can chime in on a slightly different aspect of that journey. Obviously, there's, Boston has an amazing community around it, and to kind of help students and other people do this. what typically happens in this sort of case is, I remember from my first startup that I did straight out of university, is that you start looking for co-working spaces, you start looking for infrastructure. And really what I find from my experience is it pays a lot to kind of get started with something. If you're an engineer, build something. If you're not an engineer, build a wireframe, build a prototype, build something, show it to people indiscriminately, and see what they say. Even before you quit your job, even before you start cutting classes, even before anything else. And see, even if people are not interested in it, try and suss out why they're not interested in it. Is it not relevant for them? Is it relevant for them, but the idea is not compelling enough for them? Is it not pretty enough? And what that process does, it kind of gives you the feedback to take the next steps. It demonstrates to you what the next step is. Maybe people are not liking it because your wireframe is not pretty enough. Well, you talk to a UI person, you talk to somebody who has a flair for designing things and making things beautiful. Maybe that's the first person you work with. And so on and so forth. Maybe you're 3 of you and you need time to work together. Well, go look for a co-working space. Maybe you need resources. You can go to Framingham State at Mark Hardy's, or you could come to UMass Boston. The process of getting started with it and the process of sussing out why people are saying no is incredibly useful, and it lays out the groundwork. It tells you what you need to do next. And I think that's very, 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 very important.
Yeah. If I could jump in, I just want to touch on that. I saw there are a few people that are still in grade school that are maybe are listening to this call, but I think go to your family first. Go talk to them, share the idea with them. They'll be there to support you. And if not, if you have a teacher, some business oriented teacher that's in your high school, go to them, talk to them, share the idea. They'll be there to help you. And along with that, in college, find a professor that's maybe in your college or outside of your college who has open office hours, and just go talk. Just let them know your idea, or her, and just share the information, go back and forth. And then from there, go to something like a mass challenge, which I was a part of as well. And it's just, just talk to people, get to see what people think and how it's perceived by other people other than just you.
That's a really great point, because I'm a senior in college right now. I got my personal start by speaking with my lab professor. So she's called my PI. So she's my mentor and my supervisor, which really tailors into what I wanted to touch upon next and see where you all started. Did you have a mentor? And if so, who were they? And how did you really get to know who they were and kind of choose them to be a part of your story?
I'm happy to jump in. So I would say we had a lot of different mentors that we relied on a lot over the years. We also, another thing about her campus media is that we've completely bootstrapped it. So we never raised money. And so we never had a formal board or investors that we had to answer to, but we still really wanted that kind of like support and additional level of expertise and insight and mentorship. So we were really intentional about seeking out mentors anywhere and everywhere, from speakers that came to campus, people that we met through our summer internships that we had, any connections that we had. We really would just go to any relevant events, have informational meetings with people, and just meet as many people as we could, tell them what we were doing, and really seek out people in different kind of like verticals and industries that could help supplement our knowledge in different ways. So people in the advertising space, in the journalism space, in the tech space. And what we did every time we would make a connection is we would always follow up with them via email afterwards. And then what we would do is ask them if it was okay if we subscribed them to a listserv that we created called our supporters listserv. And this was a listserv of kind of advisor, mentor type people that we had met that were sort of industry contacts. And for actually the first 8 years of our company, we sent a monthly email out to that supporters listserv, detailing kind of our progress we had made the last month, what was coming up, areas where we needed help. And this really helped us to maintain kind of in the loopness with a big, broad group of mentors without having to maintain all those individual relationships. And then when we did want to kind of zoom in with one of them and really get their advice on something, they were in the loop on what we had been up to because they were receiving these newsletters. So I think a lot of people are really good about networking and making those connections to begin with, but then actually sustaining those connections is really the most important part, because it might be that you come up on something a year, 2 years, 3 years later that you want someone's help on, and if you haven't been in touch with them in a couple of years, it's, you know, they may not even reply to your email, but also the just work of having to fill them in at that point can be challenging. So I think the more mentors, the better, and figure out an efficient, scalable way to keep in touch with them. For us, that was an email newsletter.
I actually mentor companies, so I spend quite a bit of time with our student companies here at Framingham State, getting them better at communicating their idea, giving them the tools they need to structure how they communicate so that they focus on the types of things that will help their audience understand the idea fully versus just one aspect of it, or perhaps, you know, the dream that you have, but also include what the business looks like, et cetera. So it's important that you, like our panelists have said, you get really good at communicating your idea to as many people as possible. You'll learn along the way what people are hearing when you speak, and get to the point where you're actually very articulate about what this idea, what this company could be. And then people can help you. When they don't understand your idea, it's hard for them to help. So as a mentor, I focus a lot of my time early on just getting them to be as articulate as possible. And then over time, like Stephanie was saying, I check in with them periodically, make sure they've got their momentum, they're reaching milestones, they're achieving certain goals, and really building the business from what was once an idea, and having someone to be able to turn to with questions about building that business.
I think this, go on, Adam.
Oh, thank you. Coming from my perspective, as my business started in early high school, I didn't really have a mentor up until college. But again, like I said last time, just talking with your family, and they're going to be there for you in terms of helping with your ideas. But when you do come into college, like find that one professor that you really get along with or is in your field, and you can just talk about any sort of business idea, whether it's yours or theirs or something else that you heard about. It just really helped me, and it really helps just your thought process and just getting comfortable with that individual, and they want to see you grow. And so they're always there for you. Like, I'm sure Mark is in that position all the time. And I know a few professors here that have really helped me along the way.
All right, thank you. Himanshu, did you want to add something, or? I think he may be frozen. So, struggles of Zoom technology. Well, thank you all for sharing that. One question that a lot of students may have is, what do you do when you're stuck in that idea stage and you just don't know how to reach out? Aside from competitions and structured formats, what is kind of a way to like push yourself into, I have this idea, now how do I do something about it, in less of a formal competition kind of way?
So I'm teaching an entrepreneurship class. We use a framework called Business Model Canvas. You can Google it, Business Model Canvas. There are 9 elements to it. It's a great framework for someone who is stuck, and it's going to ask you a set of questions about your idea that really drives you to think more about the business versus just, I have this idea, I think I'm solving some pain point, or I think it's a unique invention, et cetera. So getting stuck happens to all entrepreneurs. And quite frankly, you're going to get stuck a bunch of times. Founders malaise is real. There'll be different peaks and valleys when you're excited, but there can be times when things slow down. And so it's important that you look for ways in which to structure your approach to bringing an idea to market, and then sharing that idea in a more structured fashion with others. So strongly encourage you to look at something like a business model canvas as a framework to use that's going to ask you some tough questions. Traditionally, the thought was, and Stephanie brought this up, a business plan, much lengthier document. Perhaps you're not ready to write 30 pages or 20 pages, but in my class, I ask my students to just complete the framework or the canvas, and it gets us talking, which is the most important thing. It gets my students to talk about their idea with other students, and that conversation, I think, is what's critical, because at the early stages, conversation is going to get you a whole lot farther in terms of just who understands what you're doing, can help you in some way, and then can point you in a direction that would help you make progress.
Another kind of small, but I think powerful thing we did to help us in that situation was, what we actually did is we went and picked a launch date and publicized the launch date way before we had things anywhere close to being ready to launch. So for us, that was September 16th, 2009 was the day we launched. We picked that early in the summer and we publicized it like crazy. So one thing about being an entrepreneur is that you don't have a boss. So there's no one forcing you to do things on a deadline, on a schedule, until maybe your product is out there and you have clients or something like that. So for us, we had to create that kind of external pressure. And we did that by just picking a date, putting it out there, and it forced us to just get our act together and figure out a way to somehow launch by that date. So it can be a little stressful, but I think it can be really, really helpful to just create that kind of an external deadline for yourself.
If I could jump in, I think from the physical product side of things, what really helped me get off my feet, as soon as you have like whether it's a prototype or a few made products, just walk into a store, ask for the manager, pitch them your idea, and try to sell it directly to them, or sign up for a farmer's market and just get the product in front of people. As soon as just try to get it out there. The sooner you do that, as the faster it'll start picking up. And if you really believe in your product, then it's going to go places. You just got to pitch, regardless who it is, your friends, your family, or stores. Just walk in, ask for the manager, and throw your product at them. Don't take no for an answer.
Yeah, great point. You got to test. The earlier you can test your product in front of your target audience or customer segment, the better. They are going to give you very real feedback. Your family's great. They love you. But get in front of some customers who will give you just genuinely honest feedback that you need to hear. And as soon as you get it, it'll give you an opportunity to tweak and make some adjustments and improve the product at its very earliest stages, so that as you truly start to ramp up, you've got a product that your audience has already endorsed and said, hey, we need this. I'm sure the entrepreneurs on this panel have had that experience where they've put some things to the side and really narrowed in on something that they knew their audience was interested in, and then brought that to market and saw their customers support that effort.
I'm sorry, you had a little blip on the internet. Haley, could you repeat that question if we're still on it?
Yeah, of course. So we kind of segued a little away from the question. We started off with mentors, and now we've kind of turned into, if you have an idea but you don't know how to get yourself to either start the process of that idea, or you don't know how to make that a reality, what is something small that you personally might have used or recommend people use to get it yourself either out there or get your product out there?
Yeah, I think I could summarize what people have said, but I'd just be repeating it, which is to do whatever minimum you need to do to get people to talk to you. So Wireframe, it's a prototype, it's a product, it's a sketch, it's something on a paper. Get people to talk to you, and you know, improve upon that, take their feedback, and go out. And if it's a consumer product, that's the way to go. If it's a B2B product, I mean, I don't know how many people are aiming to do a B2B company. I know you are, Haley, but B2B becomes a bit more interesting. You have to rely on people to kind of put you in front of your potential consumers and stuff. And of course, in your case, it's your PI and you know, your lab infrastructure and professors. At the kind of university level, it'll have to be that.
I've actually seen a lot of B2B business startups in my time teaching.
Oh, really?
Yeah, students may not describe it as that, but quite frankly, their customer is a business whose customer is the consumer. So B2B to C is certainly very popular. You see a lot of ideas that are based on the fact that we have an internet. It's massive. It reaches around the globe. And so quite frankly, you know, businesses may as well be your customer as the end consumer. And so that, again, endorses just get it out there, show it to folks. I love Adam's idea, which is, quite frankly, you may show your idea, your product, your service to a company or a small business, and they'll like it as much as they might want to also offer it to their consumer. So now all of a sudden, one minute, you're talking to a retailer who serves customers, and they're thinking about partnering with you. So, you know, don't be reticent, or don't expect that you might find partners in the market as you get out and show your product. I looked at the questions. We had someone who said, what if my idea is an idea that somebody else has come up with? Pretty much every idea someone's come up with. It's execution. Think about it this way. At a corner, there are 4 gas stations. They all compete with each other. That's a good thing. That's a really good thing. Customers go to where the products and the services are, and quite frankly, customers want choice. That's why you have hundreds of apparel retailers. It's a good thing that there are other businesses out there, other ideas that are close and comparable to yours, because it endorses the fact that you found something that the audience or the customer or consumers are interested in. And now the race is on to just execute. And that's probably the harder part. And our panelists can tell you just the challenges of literally executing beyond, hey, I came up with a great idea.
I think you're spot on, Mark. It's all about execution. It is all about, I think novelty is frankly a little bit overrated. I mean, obviously it makes great sense to be in a greenfield industry, but it is all about execution. And it's a great sign that other people have had that idea. It means other people are thinking about it. If you look at the history of the internet and all of these Web 2.0 companies, most of the people who founded these companies were power users themselves. They were using the platform, existing products. They were pushing the limits of the existing products, and they were unable to do what they wanted to do with it, and they came up with new ideas. The fact that other people are having similar ideas, it's a great validation.
And on top of that, quickly, I had mentioned it briefly earlier, but don't take no for an answer. If you walk into one store and they turn you away, walk into the next one. Don't throw the product out the door just because one person doesn't like it. There will be someone out there that does, and just stick with your idea and keep pushing until it succeeds.
I always tell my students, no is an answer, you know, and you want to get answers, quite frankly. You do want to hear from people and get that feedback. No is just one possible answer. Thrive on the fact that somebody said no, revisit what you're trying to do, and then you just get back out there. It's part of it. It's part of what it takes to be an entrepreneur, is to accept the fact that people are going to disagree with you. They're going to say no, they're going to decline your product or service, but there's 8 billion people on the planet. One out of those 8 billion is not the end all be all. So,
yeah. And you know, Mark talked about founders malaise, which is absolutely real, happens to all of us all the time. And it's easier said than done, but try to focus, try to enjoy the journey, try to enjoy the process of turning a no into a yes. Take that as a challenge. Find joy in sussing out why somebody's saying no. Find joy in how you can come up with clever ideas to turn that no into a yes, maybe with the next person. Enjoying that process is extremely important, because living, you know, being motivated by the grand green dreams of a wonderful exit, that sort of motivation doesn't last very long. And time can be an ally. So the more you enjoy the process, the more you find joy in those little challenges, like Adam was saying, don't say no, don't take no. Find the next guy. If that's your challenge, you're probably going to enjoy it. And you will eventually find a yes. That's what I try to tell myself, but it's easier said than done. So take that with that knowledge.
Yeah, that's definitely a great point. And kind of segueing off of that, a lot of our listeners right now are college students. So when you're in a lull, how do you recommend for college students or people who are well into a different career and they're trying to start up while having some other major life event going on? How do you recommend finding the energy to balance your life without going too heavy in one or the other and causing harm elsewhere in the life?
I think I can speak for that pretty accurately, but what I've done to really efficiently manage my time is schedule most of my classes in the morning, so that I have my morning classes and I'm out by 1, instead of, I know a lot of people that start class at like 1, they're out by 5, and then their day is already over. But if you really get those classes in early, you get all your college stuff out of the way. Yes, it's very important, but you're there so that you could develop a career. So if you're developing something that's more than what you're doing in school, like, that should take top priority. But yeah, just effective time management, stacking your classes, keeping a schedule, and leaving a lot of your day open so that you could work on these ideas and decisions, and also give yourself some good free time. Like, this is a very important part of your life. Enjoy it. Don't just focus on school and startups. Enjoy it.
I tell everyone, you know, especially those of you who are out in the work world, you know, keep your day job, okay? It's very difficult to make good decisions about a startup when you're trying to put food on the table from that startup. Startups inherently are early. They're unpredictable with respect to just revenue. Himanshu talked about the length of time it takes. Time's your ally, but if you rush things, then your decision-making can be quite flawed. Adam makes a great point. Find some time in the day. When I started a company, I actually took the time to do a bunch of research, just ready myself. And then I literally left my job and consulted for a while while I tried to build a business, and through consulting, I found my investor. So it's important to recognize that your startup is going to move at a pace that might not be the same pace as your life is going. And so you've got to find the balance that keeps you from making the wrong decision relative to your startup, because you want things out of it that it's not ready to deliver at that time. So those of you in the professional work world, keep your day job. Start to figure out, like Adam says, ways in which you can work around that day job and find some hours here and there. Put milestones out there. Stephanie makes a great point. Put a milestone out there. That's a deadline. I've got it for myself. I'm going to try to hit it. Just the act of trying to hit that milestone is exactly what you want to be doing. Miss it or hit it. Kudos to Stephanie, because I'm sure it was crazy when she reached that point. But quite frankly, she probably had a plan for, well, if we miss it, the next day, So put those milestones out there for yourself. Give yourself something to point toward, and then keep your day job and plug away at it.
Allow me to agree with both Adam and Mark with a little anecdote. I was talking to my wife yesterday, and a thought came to my mind, and I said, my life has become the sort of individual's mirror of a sci-fi dystopian novel. And much in the same way, I started working on this algorithm 4 years ago to it was a way to enrich my life. I was working on something creative. It was a new algorithm. It held a lot of promise. I was getting good results. It was enriching my life. And now it's consuming my life. It was like inventing a robot that's taken over the rest of the humanity. Now the humanity serves the robot. Everything in my life, my time, my money, my resources, my savings, my energy, my psychology, everything is now at the mercy of this algorithm, which grows to unbeknown proportions. I think that's a part of the journey. I think that happens. But Adam and Mark both make a very, very, very important point, which is that startups don't start after you quit your job. You don't quit your job to start a startup. You don't drop out of college to start a startup. You start on the startup. You try and find ways to manage your time. You do all you can. And at some point, you as an investor yourself have to make a decision. Does it look like a pragmatic decision for me to stop something else and continue with this? And not until you reach that point, and not until you have that conversation with you 5 times and you say, gee, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to do this? That's when you quit your job. That's when you start cutting classes. That's when you do that. Until that point, keep your job and cover your classes.
Those are all really great points, and I've definitely experienced part of that, especially from Adam's point of view with the classes. Stephanie, I was wondering if you could answer part of what someone had asked a question about. So you had worked in a team during college. So how did you balance your motivation as opposed to your teammates' motivation? And did you ever run into issues where your motivation wasn't quite the same? And how did you handle it if you did, or no situations if you didn't experience this, how people have handled the difference in motivation?
Sure. Yeah. So I have 2 co-founders, Windsor and Annie, and we all met through running this student publication at Harvard. And her campus just celebrated our 11th birthday on September 16th last week. And the 3 of us are all still running the company full time and have for 11 years straight. So I am so grateful that we found such a strong co-founder relationship that has really kind of stood the test of time. And I think inevitably there are definitely times where your motivation levels vary. When we're talking about the kind of founder malaise, there are definitely times where someone's feeling that way and someone else isn't. But that's actually one of the things that we often speak about as really being to our benefit. And I think for us, one of the most helpful ways to sort of pull yourself up out of that rut when you're having less motivation or just feeling blah or feeling like things aren't going well and you're feeling discouraged is that inevitably maybe one person was feeling that way, maybe 2 people were feeling that way, but definitely not all 3 of us were feeling that way. So on days where one of us might be feeling down because maybe something in our specific domain hadn't gone well that day, the other person might be having a great day and can kind of pull pull each other back out of that funk. So, and I think also when you have co-founders, once you've worked together for a while, you build that trust with each other. And you know that if someone's having something, you know, going on with their personal life, they're going to be a little bit checked out for a while. It's like, hey, no problem. Like, I know you're in this. I know you're committed. Do whatever you need to do. Like, we got you. And that's definitely was true, you know, in college with things we were going through then. And it's true now when we're all, you know, married and having babies and everything. So I think inevitably you're not all on the same kind of level of feeling enthused about it all the time, but that's actually, I think, like one of the best ways to keep yourself kind of like, to get yourself back into it when you have a co-founder right there that's like, is having a good day when you're not having a good day. And I think most important is picking co-founders that you're just aligned with big picture in terms of your work ethic, your values, your vision for the company. Of course, we'll have day-to-day disagreements. I mean, we've spent more time with each other over the past 11 years than we have with anyone else, you know, than our husbands, than our parents, than anyone. And so you get to a point where you'll have day-to-day disagreements all the time, and you just move right past them right away because you kind of agree on things big picture, and there's like nothing that could come up day-to-day that's gonna break that bond or break that relationship, as long as you make sure you're on the same page in terms of the big things. I think little disagreements are good and are healthy and will force you to kind of, you know, debate things out and come to the best outcome.
Thank you so much. That's definitely reassuring because I know, especially in the beginnings, sometimes people, especially in my senior year, it's hard because some people are like, oh, I want to go to med school. I want to go to grad school. So it's really hard sometimes to see big picture. If are all of us on the same page? Do we all see this going through to the next step? So how would anyone on the panel recommend choosing those teammates, knowing that those different factors may come into play? Or if it does come a time where someone decides it's not for them, how do you find the next person to fill in the gap of where they were before?
One little thing, I guess I'll just jump in and add there that maybe I didn't say was, you know, we all felt committed from the beginning. We hoped that we would be. Honestly, I don't know any of us thought 11 years later we'd all still be running it. You can't ever imagine like 11 years later when you're in college. But we did set up our equity vesting that it would vest over the first, I think, 4 years or so that it was understood from the get-go that if any of us like changed our mind and wanted to step out of it, that equity did vest. All of us ended up staying in it the whole time. And so we each own a third of the company. But that was a mechanism we put in place that I would definitely advise anyone else to put in place too, rather than having that equity set in stone when you're still in college and who knows what decisions people may make afterwards.
Yeah, my sort of rule of thumb with co-founders versus hires is a co-founder is genuinely someone who is adding to the idea. You sort of equally share it. You may have come up with the kernel of the idea and then they've complemented it in ways that you wouldn't have thought of. And so they genuinely are co-founders. And then over a period of time, you start to look for who you might hire to do discrete work, to do things you need done. Startups and the co-founders, they break up all the time. So you're not going to be going through anything unique when you and your co-founders or some of your early team members have decided that they're not going to continue on the journey. Be prepared for it, quite frankly. Recognize that, you know, not everybody's going to be in it for the long haul, in part because you can't predict success. You know, Stephanie makes a great point. 11 years on, I seriously doubt at year one, month one, they were thinking, gee, in 11 years, this is going to be really cool. So sort of go in prepared with an idea for, hey, you know, can we just get through milestones, and should somebody decide to leave, can we make that happen as smoothly as possible? Ignore some of what you see in the media, focus on your company and what it's going to take for you to get through milestones, and not imagine some crazy scenario where you're fighting over, you know, equity and it's worth billions of dollars. Yeah, that is not going to happen, you know. So focus on getting things done early on and recognize that at any point in time, someone could leave. I'll give you a quick anecdotal. I started a company. I raised $3 million. My head of product at year and 2 months said, I'm leaving. And that was quite a shock because he'd built a team of about 15. But I quickly just thought, okay, I'm not going to try to convince him to stay. I got to just figure out really quickly how life goes on without him, and had dinner and sat down with my leadership team and just figured out a strategy that we could move forward. I think the most important thing for you to do when somebody critical to your company, a co-founder, an early hire, decides to leave, is to accept that that's the case, figure out how to move forward, because it's a good skill to have as a leader and as a manager, but also, again, you're not alone. It happens in lots of startups, and it's a testament to your ability to drive your idea or the team's product forward that you can handle some of these things that come along. Somebody deciding that they're not on for the full journey.
Yes, I think when choosing partners and especially hires is finding people that you trust. And when you talk to them and you get a sense of trust for them. And like, I can't thank my warehouse manager enough, Leah. She's done a great job and she's just someone that I really trust. And yeah, so that it was brief, but just finding people that have your interests in mind and that care about the company almost as much as you do. And so that I think is a very, very important point.
Yeah, one thing, oh, sorry,
Go on, Haley. Go on. No.
Just one thing that kind of ties a lot of what everyone's been saying together. If you don't believe in your idea, it's not going to become a reality. At the end of the day, make sure you believe in yourself and believe in your product or your company or your idea, and then surround yourself with people who are that same mindset. Because without that, why are you doing something if you don't believe in it? So really just stay core to your values. And kind of off of like the team, when there are conflicts that arise, I know, Stephanie, you said recognize it and move on. When does it ever reach a point where, okay, we need to sit down and have a conversation because this is too much? When do all of you recommend is a good time to halt it? Is it early on, or should you see how the situation plays out a little bit?
So maybe I can jump in. Well, I think the operative kind of concept to my mind in both of those questions, the last one and this one, is momentum. And there's an awful lot of literature around that concept, particularly in the startup world. And what it all distills down to is trying to always keep making progress, live in the present, don't get bogged down by what it means 10 years from now, 5 years from now, exit, and what have you. Don't get bogged down by things like equity and so on and so forth. Keep making progress. And so when there are disagreements, for example, what I've found works very, very well, not only in the corporate world, but generally in the startup world as well, is to kind of, first of all, take yourself out of the equation. Don't make it personal, not for yourself. And you would often find that the other person also mirrors it. And then try to find the last point of agreement and rework from that point of agreement. You may find that ultimately the both of you or all of you are trying to get to the same end goal, the same milestone. You want the same things. Often you may find that you're not even coming from different places. You're approaching it from the same place, and try to make it as objective as possible, and agree that the point of the whole thing is not anything other than finding a way to make progress and to continue to make progress. It may happen, unfortunately, that what I was going to say was, even if you can't make progress on this issue, make sure that you're making progress on other issues. Because what happens is, if it so happens that you're not making progress on any of the issues that you're talking about, and you're stuck and there's too much back and forth like that, then I think there is something to think about. Then clearly the disagreements are not being healthy anymore.
One thing worth considering is, while some companies get started and perhaps they raise capital, and then when they raise capital, you create a board of directors, quite frankly, a lot of disagreements amongst the leadership go to the board level, and your board helps them sort them out. You might be a relatively young company. You and somebody else started the company, agree on an objective individual that you would go to in the event that you reach some impasse. Try to set yourself up so that it isn't just the two of you or however many on your team arguing. Bring another voice in, an unbiased or an objective party, to sort of help you get through that. That's the nature of leadership, quite frankly, is that disagreements happen. And there's a good reason for you to structure yourself such that when disagreements happen, there's an arbiter, someone you can go to, or somebody that you can, or group of people that you can go talk to help get through that impasse. It's going to happen. I've experienced it myself. I'm sure Stephanie's had some arguments with her team. You know, you really want to put yourself in a good position where there's some resource you can take advantage of when you're at some decision-making impasse.
Well, that's definitely some very great recommendations from you all. And we only have a short time left, so I wanted to bring it to more of a broad topic again. So what is the greatest lesson that you've learned while starting a company in school? And seeing that others do the same, what would you find useful for students in the current world position? We're living in a little bit of strange times, a little different from when most of you got your start. Whether it be the COVID-19 pandemic or the fact that it's a very digital world, what do you recommend for current students or current young entrepreneurs?
We're not that old, Haley.
You can say you're old, just you're not in school anymore.
I think these are, in times of tumult, those are the best times to be looking around and starting things. Chaos is a great environment in which to settle yourself, stay calm, you know, focus while all else sort of around you is going crazy. So these are good times. The other thing is you're seeing actually a lot of stuff that doesn't work when something like a pandemic arrives. And what innovative ideas can you come up with given what's been forced on you? Not all of us a year ago believed we would be sitting on our beds in our homes in faraway places studying some particular lesson or class, and our professor is in his or her home, you know, equally uncomfortable. So, I mean, this is an awesome time for you to look around at what's going on and ask yourself, how can I improve this? Are there things I can invent? Are there things I can do? Are there services that are necessary? And go ahead and pursue those dreams and those ideas. I think it's a great time to really chase that next big idea, that next big opportunity.
Yes. On top of that, I think right now using social media to your advantage is one of the only ways and the best way to get the word out there. And with everyone at home on their phones all the time, just post things, tag things, comment on things, whatever it is, just have your name attached to it, whatever your idea is. Share it with friends and family, have your friends and family share it with their friends and family, and just keep trying to push through social media, post videos, photos, whatever it is, just get the word out there.
Now, not to get too allegorical about things, but you know, we all learned recently, at least I did, the forest fires are very, very important for new growth. In fact, crucial. And you know, times like this, times when there is a global pandemic, or times when, you know, the stock market crashes and everything seems to come down like a house of cards, they are like economic forest fires. And these times of change give a huge amount of opportunity for new companies, for, you know, slightly older companies to adapt, pivot, start new lines of services, focus elsewhere, and so on and so forth. Which, you know, economists rarely ever give credit to it. Most of them say, oh, it was the bank interest rates that got the economy back on feet, and mostly it was liquidity and injection and printing of money and all that. But everyone who wants to do something does something of great value in these times, and it may be you. So these are times of great opportunity, and I think both Adam and Mark are spot on. And I'm again just rehashing this in different words, but these are times of great opportunity.
Yeah, there's a quote I had shared with our team earlier this year, actually, when this was all starting, which was that a pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity, and an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. And so we really kind of pushed on our team to look at things that way this year. And I think that could be true whether you're thinking about starting something new or just, you know, keeping going with whatever you're already working on or whatever you're working on in your day job. So I think looking at this as a time ripe with opportunity is exactly right.
I think that is a great thing. It's definitely the mindset of how you look at the world and look at the business and look at your own life as well. One way I like to think of it is this is just a small drop in time. This is just one point in the grand scheme of things. And if you really believe in something, as I mentioned before, and you really see yourself in this place making an impact, this little drop in time doesn't mean very much. As Himanshu said, you can use that drop you can be that person to make the big change. Or if right now isn't the right time for you, you can be planning, you can be talking to people like Mark, trying to figure out how to get your idea into place. Or you can be like me and Adam, still in school, trying to get through that part of our life so that we can move on to the next part. But enjoying every second of it. And even if things are hard, that's not the only thing going on. The world is a lot bigger than just 1 year or 1 month or even just one moment. So if anyone else had any final words that you would like to share, feel free at this time.
Thanks very much.
I'm
Hey,
staring
Lee
at the
and Stephanie.
questions in the Slido. When do you realize, no, what challenges and benefits go from bootstrapping to getting funding? Stephanie knows this. Bootstrapping means you get to make the decisions and you're not accountable to anyone beyond your team. You're certainly accountable. Funding brings in others. They have a now vested interest in your success, but also a say in some of your decision making, quite frankly, some of the timing, etc. I'm a big believer that you should go as far as you can with your idea before you consider raising capital. That might be a long, long way, years, that might be months or two, but definitely try to do as much as you can because you're building value. And the more value you can build on your own, the more investors will see that value and in turn be interested in helping you grow the company versus simply turn an idea into something of value. Yeah, I think bootstrapping is the way to go. Could be challenging. Those of you who have ideas that involve a lot of capital expenditure, equipment, things like that, those are challenging businesses to start. But in today's market, you can test food ideas in contract kitchens. You can test, drink ideas in labs and in I've got a startup that's testing a juice idea in a manufacturer up in New Hampshire. So there are ways to get around some of the capital expenses that you might think require funding. Go at it and try to do the best you can from a bootstrapping standpoint. Go as far as you can before you raise capital.
I think another important thing is don't be afraid to ask for help. You're not going to have all of the answers. There's always going to be something that you don't know or someone who knows more than you do. So if you've reached that point where you've gone as far as you can, reach out to someone, see who would know the answer, or maybe one of your teammates will know someone who knows the answer. The network doesn't stop growing, and just keep reaching out to people.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot. And not just fearing reaching out, but reaching out to as many people as you can, as often as you can, just all the time. Just getting that word out there. Word of mouth is probably one of the easiest ways to get a startup going, is just getting your name in front of as many people as possible. And if asking for help is one way to do that, then ask away.
There was a question on Slido about, did you ever face any doubt? Yep, yes, definitely. I think that's the nature of it. You're going to face lots of doubt. That's why I think you heard us early on talk about getting better at communicating, getting better at sharing your idea so that people can see your vision fully versus just have missing pieces. So it's important to recognize that a lot of the doubt you face with a startup is that whom you're talking to just doesn't really understand the breadth or the scope of your idea, and you just got to get better at explaining. So, Adam's correct. You've got to practice. You've got to get out there talking to people and get better and better and better at how you communicate about the idea. The doubters typically just don't understand you well enough. And then once they do understand you, they might not believe in the idea, but that's not doubt. That's just simply, I don't agree that the opportunity you see is the size of it. But quite frankly, the stronger and the better you are at communicating your idea, the fewer doubters you'll have, and the more people will start to recognize that, hey, there's something there, and then they'll encourage you to continue on.
I think there's one very good question on Slido, which is, what do you do when you realize your idea is already done by somebody else? And at that point, the number one thing you've got to do is do research on how well they've done it. And you've got to take an assessment on how far along or how further along they are than you are. And see, there's bound to be a lot of overlap, but there's bound to also have, if you've been working on it and you've been doing something with it, then you must have done something probably that they haven't done. That's a good time to kind of reach out to them. That startups are not always about the grand exit. A lot of time you develop something, there's a lot of value in what you develop. You can either make it open source, it helps you immensely. You can take that, there is something called acqui-hires. I don't know if you guys know about it, which is when a company, an established company, buys your IP, brings you on, and that can really leapfrog your career. You can accelerate your career by 5-10 years. So first of all, don't be discouraged that somebody else might be doing it. They might be further along than you. You might be in a race, or that it might happen. Such is the nature of karma. It pays at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you everyone so much for your time and for sharing everything. It was really great to hear from all of your backgrounds and professions, and you as people are all great. So thank you so much. Thank you to Startup Boston for this opportunity, and feel free to reach out in the chat. All of our handles are there. Feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn. All of us are, hopefully I can speak for everyone in saying that we want to help each other, and that's what Startup Boston is all about, is starting the network, opening the network, and just continuing to talk to each other and see each other succeed.